Go ahead. Gloria? Gloria? Gloria, Gloria. Anais and Ella, please join Khan. Well, as we wait for Gloria to get on to join the pro group, maybe I can make the opening statement for pro. And yes, I think you can make the argument, because we need somebody to make this argument, that the European Union is the most advanced form of globalization because it is purposefully and explicitly based upon the awareness of interdependency, that your well-being and my well-being are interdependent. That's always been true forever. But the question is, how much are we aware of it, of this interdependency? How much are we aware that what you do impacts me and what I do impacts you? It's always been true, but due to the expansion of education, due to the rise of social science, due to the accelerating rate of international business and trade, economic activity, locally, nationally, internationally, more and more people can see and feel and imagine the effects of our interdependency. They realize it, or at least part of it. They sense it, and they can respond positively to it, or they can respond hostilely and negatively to it. And Europeanization is based upon a positive response to the deepening and broadening awareness of interdependency, the intense awareness and salience of interdependency, broadening and deepening throughout the publics in these societies. And as I said, that's due to a lot of factors, not the least of which includes international travel, widening education, literacy becoming universal, and so on. And so Europeanization involves accepting that and working with it through the European Union institutions and processes to guide it, direct it, get more benefit from it. Benefit, what kind of benefit? More economic prosperity through greater economic efficiencies, but at the same time, also trying to protect the social welfare rights and expectations of the populations through avoiding race to the bottom competitions that lead us all to be poorer off in the long run. And also providing not only just economic benefits, but pride benefits. That how can France have grandeur after the humiliations of up to 1960? Through European integration. How can you be a proud Italian, a proud German, a proud Portuguese, a proud Bulgarian? You can't do it on your own. But if you are part of the European Union, that's one way to associate inevitable nationalism with liberal cosmopolitan values. That we can be great again by cooperating, collaborating, communicating, and coordinating with our policies. And that's what this course is about. How does the European Union how does European integration encourage the nations of Europe to communicate, collaborate, coordinate, and cooperate? The 4 C's. And because that's where the power of the European Union comes from. It comes from its member states. Its member states want this to happen, that's why it happens. And if they don't want it to happen, you get Brexit. So that's my argument as to why Europeanization is the most advanced globalization. Gloria, do you have anything to add?
Yep. So I said that I was pro because European Union is not just a limited entity. It's also a living organization with so many branches that sometimes Europeanization extends upon member states' policies, membership, EEA effects, post-Brexit status, and EU institution impact on liberal rights, such as human and minorities' rights, for instance. And the European Union agenda has tremendously focused these past years on international purposes, which compares to Europe a new lens to close to globalization. Even with instruments and policies, the sharing resolution are becoming a thing. Throughout the years, the European Union took a new dimension and diffused a lot more its policies, its analytical instruments, and its agenda. As highlighted in the textbook, Europeanization can be either silent or loud, and it shows that the capacity of the European Union to conquer policies, election rules, and laws. In conclusion, Europeanization can take as many forms as it exists. Therefore, it can shape as many instruments, policies, and agendas as it.
Okay, I apologize for my computer. The right speaker is blown. So sooner or later, I'm going to have to buy a new computer, but that's 3 million won. So I'm kind of putting that off. Okay, so, and Anais and Ella, who will speak first? Let's let Anais speak because Anais is here in class. So Anais, you speak. You speak calm. Why, Anais?
Okay, good. So I said calm because, yeah, like you mentioned, the policies the European Union put in place were called as a race to the bottom because they did not favor globalization. And for me, I thought that if there were leaders in globalization, it meant that they would have been the one who benefit the most from it. And that's not the case because Asian countries like Asia or India were the one who took advantage of globalization and developed their countries the most. So I was confident.
Yeah, that's an interesting point in terms of, I think in my pro explanation, I was advocating it in terms of European nationalism, that European integration is good to make Europe great again. After Europe had been great and then fell away at the beginning after World War II, and then how to make Europe great again through European integration in a world where we have nuclear weapons, climate change. We can't have wars of conquest, even though Russia's trying to conquer parts of Ukraine. But basically, fortunately for Russia, Ukraine is not a nuclear country. But among great powers, resolving their disputes on the battlefield is suicidal today. So how are we going to compete? You have to compete indirectly. More and more competition for influence and prestige in the world happens through competition in the world economically, competition in the form of your corporate champions representing the cutting edge technological capabilities of states. It means like Alphabet, Google, and Facebook, Meta, and then of course also your pharmaceutical industries with their and biotech industries and the speed with which corporations have developed the mRNA vaccines. The indirect competition through interfering in the internal politics of other countries is certainly part of it as well. Trying to cover it up and hide it because again, escalation in direct nuclear conflict is suicidal. So we see how the Chinese and the Americans and the Japanese are competing for influence in places like Myanmar, allying with different groups and constituencies. But the point is that this competition is more indirect. It's not on the battlefield between great powers, at least anymore. If we do have World War III, we won't have World War IV. And we all know this, and how that means if there's a war in Ukraine, Ukraine will be an accidental war, which is quite plausible. A missile misses Ukraine and lands in Poland somewhere, the US will have to respond. US and Poland will have to respond. And that's more likely than not. But that's unintentional escalation. But those kind of accidents always eventually happen sooner or later. And that's an important point to keep in mind. So for Europe to compete, it needs to be a global leader through economic and global community concerns like dealing with climate change. And that's supposed to be a great benefit for you if you're a European wanting your country, your little country of only 60 million people, to be a leader in the world with China and certainly as part of that, United States, however you view the United States, You might even view as an ally if we tend to stereotype the Americans as basically being European offspring, settler colonial offspring of European civilization. There are those people making that argument that the United States should come to save Europe and democracy by making a free trade agreement with the European Union and Britain. And that's been being discussed for years now, but it's become particularly urgent now that Britain has done Brexit, and the idea to try to mobilize the United States and its allies in dealing in this global competition with Russia and China on the other side. Could that expand to include Latin America as other settler colonial European entities? Possibly. There's been talk about that too. So we'll see how intense this conflict between Moscow and Beijing becomes. Ella.
Yes.
Your con statement, please.
Okay. So do I make my con statement based on what I wrote or what you just said?
Both.
Yes. Okay. So I was thinking, based on what you said, that Europeanization, I think it sounds more kind of like to South Koreans, it would sound more like kind of neo-colonialism or European imperialism, like with a happy face stuck on it. Because, you know, you'd say that they're like competing indirectly. And to South Koreans, I think Asianization would be the most advanced globalization to them because it would be centered around Korea and it's centered around, you know, Asian culture and Asian prosperity and stuff.
But what about, I mean, Asianization, doesn't that mean China-sization or Sinicization? China's too big. That's always the claim. You can't do your Asian integration with Asia because that means China is a nation state. We can say, well, India is about the same size, but India is a post-colonial British creation. They're playing also with this notion now, the rulers in India in the last 20 years of Hindutva, Hindu nationalism. They won't even want to change the name of India away from India, which just means south. It's a British name for that area, and change it to Bharat. That's the true Hindu heart of Indian civilization. Can you imagine India and China allying to create Asianization? And that would be necessary to counterbalance big China. But why would they counter? Who's their common challenger that's going to motivate India and Beijing, India and China, to see themselves as allies? When China dismisses India, China thinks India is a post-British colonial thing that represents everything that China hates about imperialism. That it's a British creation, that it's an artificial entity. And then, of course, the Hindu nationalists, they respond by saying, no, India is the cradle of one of the great civilizations in the world, Hindu civilization. But, you know, at least 15% of the population in India is not Hindu. There are 170 million Muslims, at least, in India, as well as other ethnic minorities. There's caste divisions, intense divisions between caste that roughly correlates with skin color. Hindu ideology and religion is based upon caste. How can you have a unifying nation state on the basis of Hindu identity when the Dalits and the untouchables are despised and hated? They're called untouchables by the higher caste in that society. It's not going to work, the Chinese might claim. India is a country doomed to fall apart, they might claim. I'm not saying it's true or not. I mean, I'm thinking on my feet here over the years in terms of what I've studied about India and what's holding India together so far. Economic interest is what holds India together. I mean, India's got 700 different ethnic and racial groups in it. Economic interest. Can that succeed in making India a counterbalance to China, not to mention integrate with China in an Asianization strategy? So there are no concrete answers to these questions. Some people say, no, that's why you need America. The only country that can counterbalance China for Asian integration is the United States. So that's why, part of the motivation behind the Trans-Pacific Partnership that Donald Trump rejected when the US is supposed to enter that. And now they're talking about the comprehensive and complete Trans-Pacific Partnership that includes Mexico and Chile and Canada and Australia and the United States and Japan. And but again, it's somehow oriented against, we're dealing with China. So, okay, well, that's where I have to stop today because I got to get out of here and there's going to be another class coming in. So if you have any questions, you can always send me an email. Okay, bye.